man?
What's going on, Josh? How's it going?
Going pretty well.
Yeah,
Pretty well.
st-
I guess all things considered, right?
yeah, staying inside.
Oh yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, hanging in there. So I just
Where
want,
where are you at?
New Jersey.
Jersey. Oh,
How
okay.
about
Gotcha.
yourself?
Yeah, Georgia.
All
Yeah.
right.
So I know you guys have had some stuff going on up there, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it'll probably be down by you guys pretty soon, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if you're ready to get going, we're ready.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you. You're actually the second long snapper had on. We had on previously. Few months ago now, Lonnie Paxton, now retired. He was with the Patriots and Broncos. Just cool hearing his story too. But I wanted to ask you, back in college and everything, I know you played at Auburn. Were you always just a long snapper? I mean, was your background more of like an offensive tackle position, and then you moved there once you realized you could go pro at that position? I mean, what was it like for you to become a long snapper? I mean, I'm sure you were probably playing other positions at some point in your career beforehand. I mean, what led you to this point that's had made you had so much success?
Yeah, well, first I'd like to say, thanks. If you've only had two snappers on, and I'm the second one behind Lonnie, I mean, he's a legend, man.
Yeah.
He did it for a long time and was very successful. So that's very cool. But for me, long snapping, like a lot of guys, I guess used to be. Nowadays, there's more camps and things that are specialized, to get scholarships and things like that. But growing up, I played other positions. I played a little bit of running back before I realized I was a little too slow for that. And then I switched over to defense and played linebacker and defensive end. And I guess it was in middle school when I first started snapping on the team, and just kept doing it. I didn't really think that was anything. There was anything there that I could lean on that to go to the next level or anything like that. I wasn't really sure how the position really worked at the next level, to be honest with you. So. When I graduated, from high school, I didn't have any offers or anything anywhere, and I grew up a huge Auburn fan. So I walked on my freshman year. That was in 2007 at Auburn. I had a lot of coaches in high school that were various walk-ons at other schools at different positions, and they just told me, they said, "Hey, listen, you're pretty good at this long snapping thing. You should at least give it a shot." And I was a little hesitant at first, to be honest with you, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized, what am I going to think, 10, 15, 20 years down the line from now if I didn't give it a chance? If I didn't give it a shot, I didn't want to look back and wonder, what if, or what could have happened. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what's the worst they could say? Sorry, but you didn't make it. Then, hey, it is what it is. But fortunately, they brought me out, and I redshirted in '07, was the backup in '08, and then ended up starting 9, 10, and 11. So it was a really, really crazy experience and just a really fun ride.
For you, I wanted to ask too. I know you mentioned the whole walk-on thing. We've had some walk-ons on also. I'm not sure for you, just looking back as you were graduating high school, and I know you mentioned big Auburn fan, but I didn't know if you were going to go anywhere else, just purely for academics. I mean, what's it like putting all your eggs, so to speak, in that one basket where, you're going to walk on and, you don't know what's going to happen, whether, where it's going to take you, whether you're going to make it or not, and going to a school with that intention and not knowing whether you're going to make it or it's going to be a mistake.
Yeah, well, I definitely understand that side of it. And like I said, I wasn't I didn't have any other offers anywhere. I didn't really have any thoughts of trying to go play ball at really any school. I grew up as such a big, like I said, an Auburn fan, so I knew I wanted to be there, whether I was playing football or just being a student. And fortunately, I had the grades to get in, and it was the only school that I applied to, which is kind of crazy. But the standards have changed a little bit since then. I don't know if I would have been able to do that nowadays, but luckily that worked out. And like I said, I wasn't banking on football, being an option, and so I just wanted to give it a shot and see what would come of it. And in fact, they didn't call me back until halfway through that football season in '07. So I had pledged a fraternity I was also in ROTC, and I was settling into to my life as a non athlete, so to speak. And kind of just being a student, and I really enjoyed that. It was fun, but obviously getting the opportunity to go on and to be called up to the team and become a student athlete at the school that I had always dreamed of attending and possibly playing football became a reality.
For you, with ROTC and pledging a frat and everything, I mean, is that something you had to give up just with the commitment to playing football? I mean, was it something where you tried to juggle it for a little bit and then you realized maybe you had to just solely focus on football? I mean, what was that like? Having to, I'm sure, make a tough decision there. Once you got, it sounds like a dream of a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were some tough decisions that had to be made. Some of the first few weeks of being involved in all three, there were many days where I would have PT with the ROTC program, at 5, and then have that would go till 6:30 or so, and then I'd have football workouts that started at 7, and then class that started at 10, or something like that, and so I was pretty worn out. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I was getting beat into the ground, just physically, and as a result, I mean, my grades kind of suffered just because. I mean, I felt exhausted. I was away at school for the first time. Time management wasn't that great at the time, and so honestly, it was a very good chance for me to grow and to learn and to understand. That hey, life is going to be full of difficult decisions. And at the time, I made the decision to say, you know what, I've been presented with the opportunity to play football, and I'm gonna choose football over ROTC right now. And, with the idea that hey, if it doesn't work out or whatever the case may be, it's something I can fall back on. But I continued to rush my fraternity. They were pretty lenient on me during pledgeship after I made the team, and it was pretty cool to get to share that experience, with those guys, and then just be able to experience a game day, in a big SEC, environment as a student, and then later on as a player. It was cool to kind of see both sides of that while I was in school.
And for you, so you did that, I'm assuming, your freshman year before they called you back. I mean, what was that like?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was pretty good. So
I mean, for someone who's getting to see both sides of it, I mean, that's got to be pretty cool to experience that epic crowd and then kind of go play in it. I mean, is that something that made it feel even more special once you got the call?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll never forget me and one of my buddies. We were hanging out one day, and he was actually with me when I got the call from the football office saying that they were going to bring me out. And it was funny because the guy was on speakerphone, and he was asking me if I had been snapping. And I mean, I hadn't talked to him in months, and nobody called me back after the walk-on tryout. So I'm thinking, well, I didn't make it. So I mean, I hadn't touched a football or a weight or anything, in a little while. And so when he called me, of course, I had to tell him that I'd been snapping every day. You know what I mean? And tell him that I'd been waiting on his phone call. But I quickly ran out to the store and got some footballs and went to the intramural fields and snapped with my fraternity brother for a while, just to make sure that I could still do it. But to your point about seeing the crowd and then being able to play in front of it, being a part of it and then playing in front of it was really cool. And especially, I mean, I knew where the student section was. Obviously, I knew basically where my fraternity Sigma Nu was where they sat during the game. So pregame and stuff like that, it was cool to be able to to interact with some of those guys and just be able to share that experience with them as much as I could, because it was a lot of fun, and I just wanted to be able to share that as much as possible.
Now, just making that transition, especially in college and now even in the pros, for you, I've heard Lonnie talk a lot about kind of the ups and downs of learning how to become a long snapper and just perfecting the craft. How was it for you? How long did it take you to fully feel comfortable doing something like that? In all different scenarios, and then also doing that and still doing it. What's that like for you in terms of trying to perfect the craft that's so diligent and so one snap kind of thing. You get to focus on one thing as opposed to having to follow different techniques.
Yeah, well, it's I like to relate it a lot to golf. I love to play golf, and I'm not. If you watch it, you turn it on TV. Every golfer has a different swing. It all looks a little bit different, but there's a few similarities. In pretty much all of them that allow them to be the caliber of player that they are. So. When you look across the league in college, high school, whatever, every snapper is a little bit different. They may be being taught the same way, but body styles, whether you're tall, short, big, skinny, whatever the case may be, that's going to, pretty much dictate how you're able to best, control your ball. And, I would say that, I'm comfortable there. But as far as like the grind and the work that goes in, that never stops. I mean, I feel like I'm always chasing perfection, right? I mean, when I look at it, even if I grade out, 100% from a game or, a particular rep, like I'm always going to find something that I could have done better. Whether that was, the location of a ball or the spiral on the ball or where the laces were when the holder caught it, on a field goal. There's always something that I feel like I could do better. And so it's always making sure that you're fine tuning those details, throughout the week. That's the way I look at it. Throughout the week, during the off season, that's the time to put in your practice and put in your reps. I mean, game day, the work's been done. You got to trust your training and get out there and let it fly.
And, going to the Falcons, I'm curious, obviously, being a long snapper, it's not something that they look for, particularly in the early rounds of the draft. I mean, was it something that, you thought that you would have to go through a similar process like most of the other special teams guys with, having to be undrafted, going to mini camp and, just going to, some preseason games, get that experience rather than being, a early first round pick, second round pick, as opposed to, linemen or just other people, similar to your position? I mean, how did it go for you to, get in contact with the Falcons and then, having to compete with a veteran long snapper and eventually beating him out?
Sure. Well, for me, it really started. I mean, my senior year of college, I started fielding calls from agents, and they were informing me that whoever the people out there ranking the positions were, that I was the number one college long snapper that was coming out for the draft that year. And my first reaction was like, who doesn't have enough to do where they're grading long snappers?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you rank? What's the ranking like there?
Right. And I'm still not entirely sure. I did make a lot of tackles in
Okay.
college just through the scheme that we ran. On punt team. I mean, I didn't have to block anybody. It was just snap and run. So regularly I was the first one down there. And hey, if I didn't make the play, I was at least hopefully leading him to one of my buddies to get him down. But I'm still not exactly sure. But I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. Played baseball. I wrestled and also played football. So being a multi-sport athlete, I feel like helped me a lot, especially in the interview process, going through at the combine and then also the Senior Bowl. So going to those different events, there was an outside chance that I could have been drafted, but for the most part, snappers are not drafted. It's happened a handful of times over the years, but I was anticipating that 7th round, if anything, or undrafted free agent, and that's how it ended up happening. In fact, Atlanta called me. They had 2 7th-round picks that year, and they told me, or they told my agent that if I was still there with one of their picks, that they were going to take me, and they did not do that. They picked 2 other people. And, I was a little disappointed in that at first, but right after the draft ended, Atlanta called us back and wanted to sign me to an undrafted free agent deal. And essentially, like you were saying, it was another, walk-on opportunity. A lot of people thought, oh, man, you made it, man, congrats. And, yeah, I mean, to get the opportunity was great, but, I tried to remind my buddies. Yeah, I'm like, listen, I haven't done anything yet. I said, they gave me, a signing bonus that barely covered my gas from Auburn to Atlanta, over the off season. So it was a foot in the door, and then it was, really just a great opportunity to be able to try to capitalize on it.
And how did that go for you, being a young guy and going against, a veteran who's been in the league for a long time? Obviously college, having to go through a similar process, but, now you're in the pros, obviously, in the best football league. in the world, probably, most would say. I'm not going to get into a debate with that, but just, just with the ratings and everything. I mean, yeah, I mean, just looking at
Right. No,
football.
I understand. Right.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. So I mean, for that, going up against a veteran, how did that, go for you? I mean, was it something where you guys bonded? Being in a position where there's not many others of you on the team. I mean, what was that like for you, competing against someone like that?
Yeah. Well, the guy that was in Atlanta when I got here, his name's Joe Zelinka,
Yep.
and he was a snapper in the league for a very long time, and spent most of his career in Jacksonville, and then the last few years here in Atlanta. And Joe is a great guy. I probably didn't think much of me being the young guy coming in, and I understand that now being a veteran in this league and just understanding the concept of the business of the game, right, and how that works with turnover and players of that nature. But I really just tried to learn as much as I could, and whether that was asking him questions or just watching the how did he get ready for practice, how did he get ready for a game, how did he handle these certain situations, and just tried to listen and tried to learn as much as I could, because I knew that I didn't know anything. I mean, I felt like I'd been kind of thrown into the heat of it, and the only thing I really knew how to do was snap the ball. So I can't control what you could control, and then just try to get a little bit better each day. And it ended up working out for me. I think the business side of football helped me get my foot in the door more so than my ability, right away. I mean, it's a game of numbers, and they'd be able to save some money by getting younger and cheaper at the position. And I'm aware that hey, hopefully, that's the same way that it happens to me. It's part of the business of football, and I just tried to learn as much as I could from a guy like Joe, who had clearly done it, for a very long time at a very high level. And I figured if I could somewhat replicate the job that he was able to do, that I would be in a pretty good position.
For you, going in, beating him, your first game in the NFL, first regular season game, how nervous or excited were you to go into that? Just being, a kid who's obviously, had to go through a lot of adversity on the football field, getting the opportunity. What was that like for you? And when, now looking back on all that, when did you start to feel comfortable in the sense of not being nervous for games? I'm sure you're always nervous, like for the Super Bowl or a big game, but when, I mean, I'm sure now as a veteran you feel more comfortable in your own skin out there. When, what season, what game defined the moment where you knew you belonged?
Yeah, well, a couple stories there. So my first ever experience in an NFL game was my first preseason game. We played at home against the Ravens. All right, and
Okay.
I didn't understand how preseason games worked. I didn't really understand that none of the starters are going to play. All that type of stuff. So I'm out there warming up, and Ray Lewis, runs out of the tunnel, and he's all fired up. And I remember thinking to myself, he's going to line up, in the A gap on punt. I just know he is. Like, great, first, first rep in the NFL. I'm gonna get the block Ray Lewis. And I thought that was, pretty cool. But then also it was like, wow, he's a little different than the guys I'm used to going up against. So that was that was interesting. But obviously he never did, and everything was fine. But my first regular season game was really a special opportunity. We played at Arrowhead, and played the Chiefs, and Tony Gonzalez was on our team at the time, and that was his first trip back to Arrowhead, and he scored a touchdown, and he dunked it on the goalpost, man, and it was awesome. That was so cool. I'll never forget. I mean, the whole place went nuts. I mean, all the Chiefs fans, just from his history there, was really neat. But I was a nervous wreck. I mean, it's one of those things that it's something I felt like I had done all my life, but all of a sudden you're like, this is a totally different stage, and this is no longer an extracurricular activity, right? This is how I'm putting a roof over my head and food on the table. So it means a little more, now. I mean, it's always meant a lot, but now this is what I'm doing for a living, and that's how I try to approach it. I mean, this is my job. I take it just despite the fact that I play, long snapper, I mean, I take it just as seriously as, the quarterback or the receivers or anybody else, any other position out there. I have a job to do, and it's important that no matter what's going through my head or what I've been dealing with on the field, off the field, when my number's called, it's time to go to work, and it's time to go do my job. So from a nerves perspective, I mean, listen, anybody that ever tells you they never get nervous, I think that's a little far fetched, but I think nerves are good. I think nerves kind of, let you know that you're ready. I mean, if you don't feel anything prior to the game, then it's, are you checked in? Are you locked in? Are you ready to go? And I know everybody has a different process, right? That they send, send things, into their head and out and whatnot, and just how they get ready. But for me, I just tried to treat it like any other game, and just tried to trust my training. And I knew that I'd put the work in, and that I was prepared, and that I was ready to go out there and show them that I could do it.
And I know you mentioned putting a house over obviously your family and everything, being more of a business now. Did that ever change your approach to the game, just looking at it, maybe being more serious, maybe, realizing that, it's not, just a game anymore, and it's also, your livelihood for you personally, just, going through all the years? I mean, was there ever a moment that it kind of hit you, whether it was your first contract or, right after the draft when you got signed, or when you had your first contract extension? I mean, when did it kind of set in for you that it was more than just a game at this point, being, your profession?
Well, my rookie year, we had a really good year. We were, I mean, gosh, I don't know what our record ended up being, but we played in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers at home, and we're really close to making it to the Super Bowl. And I remember a lot of our veteran players, Tony Gonzalez being one of them, telling me that I needed to, enjoy this, because he had played, in the league for however long it was, and that was his first opportunity to play in the playoffs. And, it took me a minute to kind of take that in and be like, wow, this is my rookie year and I'm getting this opportunity. And I felt like I, got thrown into the fire early, to play in big, meaningful games early on in my career that was able to, kind of set me up for success later on. But as far as, a certain time or a certain event that made me realize that, I mean, I would probably say my first off season after my rookie year. I was used to college and high school where, basically you get your hand held the entire year. Hey, yeah, this is when this is going to start. You're going to have 2 weeks off here, and then you're going to come back and you're going to do this, and this until you're ready. Well, at this level, you go in the day after your final game and they say, we'll see you in April. And it is now up to you to be ready. And in that moment, that's when I realized, this is totally on me. Whatever I want to make of this, whatever opportunity I want to give myself, it's going to depend on the work that I'm doing, when nobody's watching and nobody's there to coddle me and tell me I need to get up and go train, or I need to, do legs today, or I need to go snap today. I needed to find a routine. And I think that's something that's been, very beneficial, not just to me, but for a lot of guys in the league, is finding a routine, what works, what helps them, what gets their body right, what gets their mind right, so that, when game days come up, when practices come up, training camp, things like that, we're ready to go.
And, going through that, obviously having to keep yourself in shape and everything, playing a position that's so, focused on one specific task, how do you, keep in shape? I mean, is there anything that you do, specifically, in the weight room, or, conditioning wise, just because, being on special teams, I'm sure that's an important aspect for you guys. I mean, what's it like, training for it? I'm sure everyone has their own perception, just like we've heard some other guys talk about their position and what they do for that. What's it like for you, in the off season in which we currently are in, prepare for the upcoming season?
Yeah, usually my process starts with taking time off after the season's over. Whether that, if we don't make the playoffs, that could be, a month, or if we go deep into the playoffs, it could be, a week or 2 weeks. Just kind of, give my body a chance to heal, because, yeah, I know that as a snapper, I'm not, as, susceptible to some of the hits that, that a lot of the other positions are, but there's a lot of repetition in my job. And so bending at the waist and doing that type of stuff, hundreds of times, a day, for the most part, for 6 months out of the year, it takes a toll on your body. And so it's important to me to be able to get away from the game for a little while, to regroup, reset the batteries, recharge the batteries, and start with a clean slate. And when I start back, it's basically start at square one. It'll be a lot of movement prep type things to begin with. Just some light, full body workout type deals. A lot of body weight stuff or light weights, high reps. And then that'll gradually turn into 5 days a week weight training. Alternating upper body, lower body. Taking the time. One thing that I have enjoyed over the last few years during the off season is taking yoga classes. It's something that's helped me with my flexibility. It's something that's helped me with my recovery, and really just imbalance a lot too. I mean, it's tough to throw a ball between your legs and then come back up, with your head between your legs upside down to spring up after snapping it to block a guy who's coming out of a track stance. As soon as the ball moves. So anything that I can do to try to gain just a little bit of an edge or something, and that evolves. Things change. All the data and science that's out there now. Things that I've been able to read and been exposed to during my time in the league, has definitely helped with my process and being prepared going into each season.
Are you someone now who looks at, maybe the rotation, how quickly the ball, rotates, and, maybe the spin and the velocity on your ball? Are you someone who looks into that? Just with, all the technology available now? I'm sure, back in your days in college, you kind of just, snap the ball and, if it kind of landed there, it was good enough for you guys. But now with all this technology, I mean, I'm sure, it's so focused and, microscopic where, they're trying to get you down to, the nearest, percent accuracy detail for you guys. I mean, is it something you look into with all the technology available? Or are you someone who just kind of, just goes with the flow and, if it feel good's off your hand, you kind of just go with it?
Yeah, well, I have a handful of things that are basically fundamental drills, so to speak. I don't get lost in the process, because I'm a firm believer in paralysis by analysis type deal. I think that from a technology standpoint, one of the biggest things for me that has helped my game is the introduction of high definition cameras for filming practices and games. Before you turn it on, it's all grainy. I mean, you can't really even see the ball. It's just kind of this brown spot. Well, now you can see exactly where the ball is, right? You can see exactly where those laces are, as it's spinning back to the holder. You can tell how many times it rotates. So, if I'm struggling with a certain aspect of my game, there are some things technology-wise that you can tap into that can help you. But at the same time, I'm very much a feel player, if you will. I mean, the way that I snap is probably a little different than a lot of the other guys. And, do I snap it as hard and fast as some of the guys in the league? No. But I've just kind of learned that, accuracy is paramount over everything. It doesn't matter how fast you can snap it. If it's going to be off target, the faster it is, the harder it's going to be for that guy to handle it. So just trying to stay as fluid as possible for me. I mean, just trying to stay as efficient as possible throughout my snap to allow me to recover and block. And really anything that I can do to help with that. Most of the time though, you have all these crazy chips inside the ball and all these heart rate monitors and things like that. But at the end of the day, one of the things to me that I feel like has helped me the most is just during training camp or during a mini camp, whatever it may be, grabbing a young guy and say, hey, listen, come over here. I'm going to snap 5 balls. All right. We can do it in between reps. We can do it after practice, whatever the case is. But I just want you to line up in the A gap and I want you to rush me as hard as you can. And you don't have any help. There's no guard next to you to be able to help. And if you block him, great. But if not, it's kind of like that overspeed training. You hear about sprinters that sprint downhill, or things like that. If I can get a guy who, is really, really fast and has an incredible get off, I'm going to try to get as many practice reps against a guy like that as I can, because that's going to do nothing but help me for when there's live bullets flying, on Sunday afternoons.
Yeah, and just last serious question for you before we ask you a few kind of just wrap up personal questions for you. I wanted to ask you just with the whole CBA stuff going on. I'm sure you have your own opinion of everything. How's it gonna go for you? I mean, is it someone who has to play that extra game regular season wise, and the addition of the playoff team? I mean, is that something? I mean, how do you think that's going to shape the NFL in terms of how it's going to look forward for at least the next 10 years with the new rules?
Well, that's actually a good question. I'm the player representative for the Falcons for the NFLPA, so I've had a really hands-on approach to this whole CBA negotiation, being able to sit in on a lot of the meetings that have been all over the country, and all of the phone calls and conference calls that have been held, just talking about and updating us on the negotiations and things like that. But this deal is a good deal for the majority of the league, and I understand both sides of the of the fence. The first few meetings that I was in, I just really wanted to listen. I wanted to hear all sides. I wanted to hear all the ideas, and at the end of the day, it's not like this deal was struck because the middle class of the league wanted to stick it to the top guys, or vice versa, or whatever the case may be. We're all in this together. We're all in this league. We're all very blessed to be able to be paid to play a game for a living. And one of the things that I think was kind of lost in all that is that we're all on the same side. And in the art of the deal of negotiations, you're not going to get everything that you want or everything that you ask for. It's what you're able to negotiate. So, there are some pros and there are some cons in the deal. If you ask me, the pros outweigh the cons, but that's my view on it. The way I look at it is, this league is made up, primarily, 65% of our league is on a minimum deal. That are younger players that are on minimum deals, and this new CBA will raise the minimum, pay. It's going to increase our benefits for not just the current players, but former players as well. I mean, you've got, I don't even know, close to 5,000 former players who are getting ready to see, significant increases to their HRA accounts, to their pension plans. I mean, just a lot of really good things coming out of it. And, yes, there are some downsides to it, but like I said, you're not going to get everything that you want or everything that you ask for. At the end of the day, it's collectively bargained, and it's a business deal. Just as in any other business deal, there are concessions on both sides, and I understand the impact that it has on the majority of our league currently, and the majority of our league that has played. So I'm happy with where we're at. The work rule, some of the work rules, and as far as training camp, padded practices being decreased, hours on the field being decreased. A lot of things are really good about this deal. The 17th game, I see where guys are coming from. It's a lot. It's hard enough to stay healthy for 16 games, let alone 17. So I see that side of it, but then I would also, when somebody asks me about it, I'm used to playing 20 games a season already, all 4 preseason games, and then at least 16 regular season. And frankly, for me, a lot of times preseason games are harder because you punt more. It's very common to punt 10, 12 times in a preseason game. So that's a pretty considerable workload for a game that I'm getting paid a fraction of what my regular season game check would be. So to me, the 17th game, yes, it is a lot, but what was important was what we were getting in return. And the way I saw it, and ultimately the way the league voted on it, showed that what we were getting in return for that 17th game was going to be worth that extra risk.
So for you, just for everyone listening, just for the Atlanta Falcons' sake, if anyone has any problems with it, you're the guy to blame.
Yeah, well, you can look at it that way.
No,
But
we're
listen,
just kidding.
no, I don't. But listen, the way I looked at it was, my job as the representative in Atlanta was to be the voice for our locker room. And as I touched on before, our locker room is made up primarily of younger minimum salary guys. And we didn't set out to to strike a new deal, for a new CBA that only benefited the top earners in the league or the bottom earners or the middle class, so to speak. It was effectively trying to reach a deal that was going to increase pay, increase benefits, and improve our working conditions for the majority of the league. And that's what we did. And so I think that it was a good deal. And I tried to just get as much information from our guys as I could. A lot of my thoughts on this, come from the conversations I had with guys in our locker room. Because at the end of the day, I was trying to make sure that the concerns they had, the questions that they had, were all being addressed at different meetings, or whether that was on a phone call, and just trying to look out for the benefit of the majority of our league. And I feel like we were able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, just from my side, just from the fan side, and hearing from other guys, the whole business aspect of things. Everyone always mentions, the business aspect that us as fans might not be able to know, just kind of behind the scenes stuff. I mean, from everything that's been said, and what you just said, I mean, it sounds like everyone's benefiting, and kind of the only downfall that people could have possibly is the 17th game, which I get for some guys, depending on what position they play and everything, they might feel that they need a rest here or there. But I mean, it sounds like you guys got most of what you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we didn't get everything, but
you can't get everything.
Yeah, but you can't. Right, you're exactly right. And I think depending on what Twitter handles you saw react, or what people you saw on various networks talking about the reaction, whether you voted yes or no, now it doesn't, that's not really important anymore. What's important is the fact that we've reached an agreement, and we need to move forward as one group. There's still going to be things that come up, and still things that we get to fight for. But during this deal, and it's important for us to remain together and not not be divided just because of this vote. I mean, we had a lot of turnout, and it was only decided by 60 votes, which is really really close. But at the end of the day, the democratic process ran its course, and the results are what they are. And now it's just important for all of us to come together and rally around that.
Yeah, and just from the media side of things, with everything going on right now, in the world, I mean, obviously there's going to be, people, looking and digging, trying to find the nooks and crannies that, people can, kind of explode, and, kind of debate. But now with, everything going on, that's basically the only thing that, all these media outlets can cover, just with, nothing else going on.
You're right. You're right, and especially the times that we're in right now. I mean, it's crazy. It's unprecedented, and everybody's trying to figure out how how they're going to navigate the next few days, the next few weeks, whatever that may look like. And this deal was in the works for a very long time, and I'm really proud of the guys who were able to spend the time away from their families during the off season to go meet, to get on these phone calls, and thankful for the time they were able to spend really trying to educate all of us. And that's what I try to tell our guys here in Atlanta was at the end of the day, I don't care which way you vote. I just want you to be educated, and I want you to know what exactly you're voting on, because I tried to tell them the NFL is not made up of superstars. The NFL has superstars, but it's not the NBA, right? I mean, the rosters are bigger. There's just it's a different animal altogether. So when you're talking about a deal that has, that is making significant improvements to not only pay but benefits and working conditions to the majority of your league, I mean, you're talking about making a substantial difference, and a substantial change in the lives of most of the guys who were going to play.
Yeah, and I totally agree with everything. What you just said, and what you've been talking about. But for you, I just wanted to. I know you got another interview soon, so I just wanted to end with a couple few, personal questions. Kind of just wrap it. You know, places, for you that we can discuss, and then we'll just let you
Yeah.
go.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. So for you, first question: where's your favorite place to visit? On the road when you're not obviously home in Atlanta.
Ooh, favorite place to go. Well, since I get to go there at least once a year, I'm going to say New Orleans. Man, New Orleans is a great atmosphere for football. We have a great rivalry with those guys, and so if we're not playing a home game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta, then catching a game and being a part of one in Mercedes-Benz Superdome isn't so bad either.
For you, what's been your favorite game thus far in your career? Postseason or just regular season game. Is there anything that particularly stands out?
Golly, I mean, I feel like I've been a part of some really cool ones, but I would say the divisional playoff round my rookie year. We were playing the Seahawks, and we ended up kicking a game-winning field goal to send us to the NFC Championship game. So that was a pretty monumental, step in my career personally.
Yeah.
But then also just being able to, my rookie year, be able to contribute in such a meaningful, game, to allow us to move on to into the playoffs. Really, and I think at the time that may have been like Atlanta's first trip in forever or something like that. To the playoffs or to advance or to win a playoff game. In a while, maybe since like '98 or something crazy like that. So that was pretty special.
For you, what's been so far the favorite, moment just with the guys, either on the locker room or just on flights away? I mean, what's been one moment that stands out for you, just in terms of with the teammates that you've had thus far?
Man, that's a tough one to nail down a specific time, but there's been a lot of really cool road trips, a lot of really cool plane rides, a lot of really cool rounds of golf that I've been able to play with some of the guys, but really just day to day is something that I know when I'm done playing I'm desperately going to miss just that locker room. Talk, that locker room, just interaction and just being with the guys every day, whether that's, playing cards or practicing or watching tape. I mean, whatever the case may be, just having a room full of, common goal oriented, people. And, I heard it said one time, and it's so true, I wish the world was more like a locker room, because you've got guys from all over the world, all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, you name it. All in that, under the same roof, working together to achieve the same goal.
And for you, I mean, who is kind of some of the guys? Obviously, you're all teammates, but is there anyone in specific that you've created a bigger bond with? In terms of maybe someone near your position, maybe the special teams guys. I know Lonnie mentioned they have their own unique bond. I mean, what's it like for you in terms of locker room camaraderie? Some guys that you kind of lean towards in the locker room or just on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, for the really the last 7 years, me and our punter and kicker were together for 7 seasons. Matt Bosher being the punter and Matt Bryant the kicker. And while that has changed over the last year a handful of times, but those two guys have been very pivotal in my development, not just as a football player, but as a man too. And just having those guys be able to show me how to be a pro, especially a guy like Matt Bryant who kicked in this league for a very, very long time. And so being able to basically learn the ropes from him and be held to a standard by a guy like him really set me up for success in moving forward, just to not accept anything less than perfect, than perfection. And I understand that we're all human, right? We're all going to mess up, but seeing how those guys handle the ups, handle the downs, really allowed me to grow as a player and a person as well.
Awesome. Last question for you. I just wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the tight end Hayden Hurst? In the league. Do you know of him? Have you ever talked to him?
I have not. I have not.
I just wanted to let you know that you guys just traded for him. It just kind of came up on my feed.
We just traded for him?
Yeah, you just
okay.
got Hayden Hurst. So I didn't know, maybe there was a cool story, maybe you bumped heads here or there. I just wanted to let you know that you guys just got him.
Okay. That must have just happened.
Yeah, it happened literally.
Okay.
It happened within the last 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. The name doesn't jump out to me. Where was he at beforehand? Where did he come from?
Baltimore. He was one of the tight ends. They drafted him in the first round, I think 2018, out of South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Well,
you got a new teammate.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Perfect. Welcome aboard, Hayden. Looking forward to it. And, we've played the Ravens a handful of times over the years, but not too regularly with them being over there in the AFC. So, it's a crazy time right now. Just seeing, what the roster is going to look like, when we report back in April, because free agency and this whole off season, and just seeing how it all plays out. So excited to get some new teammates, but also sad to see some of the guys go. Everybody in that locker room is like a brother, and we've been through a lot together. And I wish those guys nothing but the best in their careers moving forward.
And just I wanted to mention, before we let you go, I know you asked us where we're from, and I said New Jersey, and I just wanted to let you know I completely forgot about this, but just remembering Dan Quinn, he's actually from basically the same town where we are at, so that's kind of cool that Dan.
Nice.
Do you know where he's from? Has he ever mentioned it or?
Yes, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but what I do remember is, all right, is there something up there? Is there like a seeing eye dog, like training, or some type of service dog training or something up there?
That's big, yeah, especially in the town. Yeah, they have a bunch of seeing eyes walking around all the time. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that before we let you go, just because I blanked on that in the beginning. That we forgot about Coach.
I knew I liked you guys. Yeah. No, DQ is awesome. So he's
awesome.
Been one of my favorite coaches to play for, and cool that you guys get to share the same hometown.
Yeah, awesome. Just thanks for coming on, Josh. It was a pleasure to have you on. Definitely cool to talk to you about everything that you've been through. Just wanted to wish you the best of luck this upcoming season. I know you guys are trying to bounce back, and we wish you all the best. And if you make the Super Bowl and eventually win it, the only thing is we ask that you come back on afterwards and just tell us how great the Super Bowl was and kind of give us a little credit for that.
You got it, man. You got it. I appreciate you having me on, Kyle. Enjoyed chatting with you guys, and hopefully we can have that conversation, in just a few months from now.
Yep. Thanks for coming on. I know you got another interview set up in the next 15 minutes, so just thanks for coming on. We'll let you go now and wish you all the best.
Sure thing. Thanks, brother. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
See ya.
Yeah, that was Josh Harris, long snapper for the Atlanta Falcons. Great to have him on in terms of just talking to a veteran in the NFL, one of the few guys that we got in the NFL realm of things. We've been more focused on the MLB and NCAA athletes. We've had a few NFL guys on, like David Fales, Lonnie Paxton, Channing Stribling, Ryan Delaire. The list goes on and on. Orson Charles, who I believe is now in the XFL. Shout out to him. We wish him the best of luck. Just thanks for all the NFL guys for coming on, giving us the time. Very cool to talk to him about everything Atlanta and everything going on in the NFL in terms of the new CBA kind of rules that came out and new contract that they had with the NFL and the NFL Players Association. Thanks for listening to the talk that me and Josh just had. If you've made it this far, cool to give them a kind of a sneak peek in the what the trade that just happened is that happened on the air as we were speaking to Josh. So just thanks for Josh coming on. We wish him the best, and thank you to everyone that is currently still listening to Undisturbed the podcast. This is your host Kyle Dangler. We're going to check out now, have some great content coming up after this episode as well, and just thanks